IVM.
Welcome to Absolutely Right. I'm your host Aditi Surana. Our guest today is Shifa Maitra, a media consultant with more than 25 years of experience in TV, radio, and films. She's also the host of IVM's new Hindi and English show, Smile India, a podcast where Shifa shares some good and positive things happening in our country. I must say it's a treat to talk to uninhibited, curious, and creatively stimulated people. Here are some questions that we discussed on this episode that may pique your interest. Why do some people need more and more challenges to feel stimulated and happy? Why is a disorganized mind a creative person's superpower? What part of your handwriting depicts an intellectual and creative zone? And what is a personal lifetime learning project? The father of analytical psychology, Carl Jung, said, "We may think that we fully control ourselves. However, a close friend can easily reveal something about us that we have absolutely no idea about." To a graphologist like me, handwriting becomes a doorway to know those parts of your personality that at times even unknown to you. On a Wednesday episode, we invite a guest on the show and I interview them on the basis of their handwriting. Some of you may wonder if this subject is even legit or just some sort of frivolous talk to make people feel good about themselves. I know this because I thought the same a few years ago. Why not give it a try and find out for yourself? I can't wait to begin. Shifa will be joining us on the other side of this short break. Stay tuned.
Hey everybody, welcome to another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. If you're not following us on social media, please do. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. I'd like to thank our sponsors this week, Paytm Money. It really has been a great week this week. We've had two of our first international cricketers show up, people who have played for their respective sides. We had W.V. Raman come on Edges and Sledges, the cricket podcast. If you haven't heard that, you should be listening to that if you enjoy cricket. It's really one of the best out there. And you should also definitely check out Monty Panesar, who showed up on Cyrus Says. That was another really interesting conversation that occurred. If you haven't been listening to a few of our shorter shows, please do that as well. Ashish Vidyarthi has been doing a great job for us. We got 30 episodes now on Begin the Journey. I think you really enjoyed that show. If you haven't listened to it, it helps you with understanding what's going on in this tough time and how to deal with it from a mental health perspective. We've also had some really fun stuff come up on the Smile India show. Shifa's been doing a lot of really good stories over there, things that just make you happy, so definitely do check that out. And on the more serious side, make sure that you're checking out our regular shows like the Pragati podcast, All Things Policy. They're definitely going to keep you up to date on what's going on in this COVID world. And with that, let's get you on with your show.
Welcome to Absolutely Right. Today we have Shifa Maitra with us. Shifa, I want to really know about your journey. I am so impressed and also mesmerized looking at your career in media, from journalism to radio to news channel to TV channel and now in production. Please tell us about it.
Firstly, I need to say thank you for having me on your show because I am very intrigued and I'm very excited about knowing how is it possible that through my handwriting you can know, a whole lot of things about me or about anyone.
Thank you so much. Now we will just reveal that, how exactly you're going to find out so much more. I'm curious. I'm curious to really know. So please tell us about your career, where it began and how did the podcast happen? What's the journey like?
Okay, so I've been in the media forever, for many, many years. And I started out with journalism, then I moved to television, and then I moved to radio when radio opened up in India as in private FM channels. And after which I moved back to television, then I did a short stint with feature films. And then digital started exciting me, and I did a whole lot of, I worked on a live digital platform, and then I helped set up a few more. And especially after radio, audio is something that I really, really enjoy. And so I think it's a combination of, journalism, audio, all of it. And what happened was, how Smile India came about was that I have a page on Facebook and on Pinterest called Good News Indians, where every day I curate good news about India. So that, I have about 4 pieces, which includes videos, articles, photographs. so that, I just feel that all of us need to look at the brighter side of India as well, because we're constantly, whether it's social media, whether it's news channels, whether it's, everyone's cribbing about what's wrong with the country. But I want to say that, hey, there's a lot right with the country as well. So that's how my
many a times the idea of news is associated with telling us what is going wrong and what has broken, and isn't that the idea with which people look for information, especially the people who make and produce news?
Yeah, because that's what sells, and it's building on the people's fears. And I think what I would like to do, or what I'm aiming to do, is exactly the opposite. I'd like to build faith, because I really think that if there's something that's wrong and that's being highlighted, hey, here's something that's right, and I think that needs to be spoken about as well. And also with the podcast, with the IVM team, when we were discussing it, there's also a little bit that I put in every podcast, which is a call to action, which is something that you can do, something simple that you can do that can make a difference to your life, and hence to, a few people around you and stuff like that. So yeah, it's a small step, but I think it's important.
Yeah, a small step where you can take responsibility to solve the problem instead of talking about it and only cribbing about it. That's so amazing. That's so nice. Thank you so much for doing that. I think in the lockdown period, your podcast was launched around that time, and it was such a perfect time for us to hear all of that. It was really, really helpful.
I hope people keep listening to it after the lockdown as well.
So I'm going to ask you a question that is sometimes discomforting for people, but especially for the guests. So I'm going to ask you the question, and let's see where our conversation goes. Shifa, what would you like me to speak about looking at your handwriting?
You tell me what my handwriting says to you. That's something I'm very curious about.
Okay. So people who are new to this podcast, the conversation, the interview that I'm going to have with Shifa right now will be based on a subject called graphology, where I'm going to look at her handwriting sample, which I already have in my hand. And I'm going to talk about some personality related concerns, challenges, strengths, and behavioral patterns. So the idea is to build different perspective. So when you're listening and you are listening to this conversation as a third person, you may reflect in your life and you may reflect on a particular issue. And that's exactly is the objective of this conversation. So please feel free to look at a situation, an example. While Shifa is on the hot seat right now, we will look at what all one can do. And, not only for her, but for all of us in a way. So Shifa, the first thing that comes to my mind is the enormous amount of energy that you have. If you are left in a room by yourself, you come up with 25,000 ideas in 10 minutes. You literally have that much capacity to jump from one point to another, connect completely unrelated thoughts together and build something or other. So it's not, now that explains why your career has gone through so many different areas in the space of media.
Probably, yeah, I guess so, because, and sometimes what you said is absolutely right. But what tends to happen is that I totally forget that I have put coffee on the... It's right. That, sometimes I get so, involved. Absorbed in what I'm thinking and doing, and that I totally forget that there's also something called, a time frame or yes, it needs to be done. So yeah, so that's, I guess.
In handwriting, we speak about it. Every handwriting is broken into 3 zones. So one zone is of intellectual stimulation, where the loops that we make in L and H, like all the loops are all the top parts of your writing. And then you have everyday part of writing, which is the middle part, which represents your stomach, or basically roti kapda makan comes in the middle section. And then you have lower section where your Y loops and G loops and F at times goes, and that is a part of your physical and financial movement, that even sexual activities. Now when I look at your handwriting, it is predominated by the intellectual part. And it's so interesting now that it's not only about the coffee, but anything that becomes everyday without any challenge or mundane in a way, you start finding your ways to move out of that conversation or out of that space.
Tell me about
It's-
it, yeah.
So it's
Routine,
not,
I cannot handle. If I'm,
yes.
told to do the same thing every day, I will. Like for me, my biggest nightmare of fear is that what if I had to work in a biscuit factory and pack biscuits every day? I'm like, that is something I would not be able to do. So yeah, I need to be constantly,
Yeah, I'm very happy you're not working in a biscuit factory because we would have had different shapes of biscuits from that factory for sure.
totally.
So that's so interesting. So even if you look at any area that is very very challenging, you want to enhance the challenge. You want to have different kind of challenge. So it's not only about simple things are boring for you. Even challenging things can get boring if the challenge does not stimulate you.
That's true. That is, and so which is why, I mean, the way I see it, a part of it is, it's very exciting, but
Yes.
at times it does get, I mean, it. How should I put it? That I don't really. I'm getting restless by the time I have to get to the end of something and close the loop.
Yes.
So, yeah,
Yes.
that's true.
That's true. And I would also say another part of the same trait is working with people, because they do not understand why, as a team, you require to come up with new challenges all the time. And most of the time, people have this need to come to a solution and get the problem out of the way. So when they feel, okay, now I'm getting this problem out of my way, and now I will move to stability, you come up with a newer problem. So a newer challenge or newer journeys. So if people are not up for it, the team genuinely does not know what exactly to do to be in your good books or to please you or to kind of, to work with you in a long run. So I must say this, that one of the ways in which you can really, really deal with this challenge is by breaking your idea into smaller bite-sized pieces for them. It may require some work, but people do feel confused sometimes when you are in your excitement. You might not realize it, but people around you do find it challenging to not know where the next step lies, and they also appreciate your talent and appreciate your work and your enthusiasm more than anything else. But it would be easier for you and for them if the task is broken in bite-sized pieces.
Yeah. Also, actually, that's a very valid point, because what tends to happen also is because I'm so excited about it, and I've got that from my team members sometimes, that I tell them, but I just told you about it, and they're like, no, you didn't. And I realize that I think I've told them because I expect them to, or I may have said it in passing and expect them to also be
Decode
as into
it.
as me, or decode it. That's true. Yeah,
but decode, I think that's the only word, relevant word here, because it is a lot of decoding. When you are excited, and especially, let's look at it, okay? The idea, also you're that visionary who can see things that other people cannot. Now, they rely on you because they don't have the vision. They don't have that ideation or that space to move at the speed at which you move. So you are in the driving seat, but somebody has to do the maintenance job. And they cannot move at your pace, and they require the amount of time they do. So yes.
Yeah, no, and I totally, over the years, and it's a great thing, but most of the teams that I've worked with, we've all continued to be in touch and be friends. And I've realized that, how do I put it, the stuff which I find boring and they do so well, I'm really, really grateful that I have them, and they can do the Excel sheets or make the PPTs.
Of course.
Because, I can do the ideation, or I said I can instantly say, okay, I want that person to be cast in this. But they're the ones who will go and find that person, get me the number, talk to them, and all of that. So so it's important that I buy your point that I need to be more clear in communicating what exactly I want.
Yes, because I feel most of the time people, when they're creative, they also tend to be slightly more disorganized than other people
Oh, yeah.
because of their thinking, because of you think as a collective project and not necessarily in the details of it. Now that becomes pressurizing, but I must say that is a strength. Like if you start being orderly, if you start doing things in the way everyone else is doing, then you would lose your charm. And I think that is very important to hold on to. Most people do not get this. Most of the time when people feel that they are being very excited, generally in a social connotation, people tend to tone themselves down. People tend to be softer and not barge in and not do things that are not approved by others. But then we have Shifa, who would not give up and who would hold on to her battle no matter how tough it becomes.
Yeah,
Secretly
because I
speaking,
don't know any other way.
yeah, I was secretly speaking, she hopes that the battle becomes even tougher so that she can enjoy it and bring the Wonder Woman out. So totally, yes.
Yeah, because, I mean, which is also, I think, works as a disadvantage at times, because honestly, I can't, if something is going to bore me, or if something is not going to be exciting enough, I dread that, whether it's going,
Yes.
For a dinner with some place where I think I'm going to get bored with these people, or if I start watching a film and it hasn't caught me in the first 5 minutes, I'm like, what am I doing here? So yeah,
Sure.
so I agree that is also an issue that probably you can tell me how I need to work on. Yeah.
So I think one of the things you can do, genuinely do, is to not reduce the pace at which you work, but induce activities which can bring more calmness. Like I
Right.
feel sometimes just observing things or birds or plants closely can be really engaging, but not something that you would think naturally. But if you train yourself to do that 5 minutes a day, say for example, I would have said breath watching, but that's not happening. That's too slow for you. But if you
No,
look at
actually, I know. I've started doing that, and I really find that
very,
calming. So I
oh,
try
that's
and do that
amazing.
every night. Yeah.
That's amazing, because I feel that is one of the things that you can pick up, but it can be really, really difficult because somebody whose mind is that active without any activity holding on to the calmness is challenging. So that's why I didn't say
I
breath
did.
watching.
I did take it up as a challenge, and that's why I had to get it right. And now that
Nice.
I've got it right, I'm enjoying it thoroughly. Yeah.
Nice. Very. And please hold on to that practice. We have something called flow of thoughts in our graphotherapy stroke, where you can literally use a stroke that can allow your mind to calm down. And it's a repetitive movement, but it allows you to feel more connected with your body and your mind together, similar to
Oh,
breath watching.
lovely.
Yeah,
Okay.
so actually, and people who are really creative and hyperactive, we give that stroke as a therapy specifically to them to make sure that you have a physical movement that you can coordinate your breath with. So I will send you the details of
Yeah,
it,
that
and
sounds
also.
really lovely.
So that I feel inducing activities which require you to be more engaged with them, and I think you do that. Are you into like a lot of perfection when it comes to your shot division? Which part of filmmaking do you really get immersed in and feel calm with?
Actually, surprisingly, it's writing, which
Okay.
is something that I do by myself. Of course, I
Hmm.
enjoy working with the team, and I enjoy the rush on the set, and post production, all of it. But yeah,
Hmm.
just the actual developing the concept or writing it out, that's the bit I enjoy the most.
Nice. And I can see in your writing that you do have a uh, natural talent for this. Like before you learned how to write correctly, you already had that art in you, and this became an expression. So nice, so
I
nice.
hope so. Yeah.
So Shifa, I have a question.
Yeah.
Now, taking a journey in the field that you have taken, what were your
Right.
challenges? Like, moving careers, you worked in Nepal, you worked in India, like working on
Yeah.
these large projects. What were the challenges?
I think each project or each, in my case, each, area or field that I got into was came with its own set of challenges. But what I find is that, like you said, that's the kind of person I am, and that's what interests me.
Mm-hmm.
So just the fact that like when radio just opened up and we realized how exciting it could be, and the how it was literally the theater of the mind, where
Mm-hmm.
before that I'd been working with visuals, and now you had to create that visual in the mind of the listener only through the
Mm-hmm.
voice of the radio jock.
Artist,
And
true.
yeah, so that was really interesting, and how it was so interactive. So that was wonderful, where you could get people to think a certain way, or get them to respond, and which, unlike television, which is, or film, which is a passive medium, where, as in, you're
Right.
very immersed in it, but there's nothing you can do. You can't get in
You
there and
can't
change the
participate.
story. Yeah.
True. True. Okay.
So that's what learning that for radio was challenging, but it was great fun. And then moving back to feature films, it's literally, it's a huge responsibility, because what you're putting out there is impacting a whole lot of lives in that sense, because
True.
in our country especially, films are taken very seriously. So when a character is saying a certain line, and if at that stage you feel that this is sounding very sexist or whatever, you need to
Yeah.
open put your foot down and say, no, can we change this, because this is not a line
Not.
that I'd like to
I want to
want to have.
represent. Yeah.
Yeah,
True.
or have college kids use on each other all the time. So yeah, so that was another challenge in that sense with feature film. The other thing that I guess what radio did to me, which I'm very grateful to, is that you learn speed, because everything is live and everything is immediate,
Right.
which is also true with newspapers and stuff. But with TV, and more so with feature film, it's a very long process. TV is also faster, as in, you have
Right.
a deadline by which.
True.
But in feature film, by the time the script is written, your actors are cast, and it actually goes into production, sometimes it's about a year. So for
True.
that, you need a lot of patience. Yeah, so that was a challenge on. But again, the high of actually seeing the film out there on the silver screen
Large
is
screen.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. My dad was an art director. So
lovely.
I like as a creator, the challenges that you spoke about, but I also feel there are in your handwriting, when I look at it, there are so many personal journeys and so many ways in which you broke barriers and
Yes.
creating a lot of personal struggles, or like inviting struggles in your life. Mostly people deal with struggles which are external, but you have invited struggles in your life, which I find so
My writing says that, doesn't
interesting.
it? Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
And the kind of
Yeah, that's
independent person you are, you have also made sure that you complete the loops, or you whatever responsibilities you had taken on a personal ground, you go about it and make sure you deliver on that.
yeah. That's true. Actually, yeah, that is because, like, from a as in my from the time when I was in school and stuff, because my parents were, my mother was a teacher, and my father was had his own business and stuff. So it was just assumed that, and my mother was a biology teacher. So it was like, okay,
Okay.
she'll do science, and, probably, or
Yeah.
my father was like, do computers and then join the business. And I was like, no, I want to be a journalist. And they were like, what? And then I got like, I scored really well in class 10. And they were like, with these marks, you can't be doing arts. And I was like, no, I
Yeah,
will do
I
arts
know. We had that
only.
stigma back in
I
the
know.
day. Yes, yes.
And I was like, no, I'm very clear that this is what I want to do. And yeah, that is one thing. But for that, I have to give, my parents the credit that they were like, if you're do what you want to, but do it on your own merit. So, which is what I've done throughout, that, whether it's, like I got into mass communication because of journalism, because I wanted to do journalism. I'd written articles earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was a 1-year course. And by the end of the course, I was like, I want to get into advertising. And they were like, but why? You wanted to. I was like, no, that's very interesting. That's what I want to do. And I got into Lintas, which still is a very big agency.
Yeah.
And
one of the best that time, right?
Yeah. And I did my internship at Lintas, and then they offered me a job. And I said no, because it was like I was there for about 3 months, I think. And then I said no, I don't want to do journalism. And then when I went home, and my parents were just amused by me, saying that, okay, so what is it that you finally want to do? Like, whatever, I'm having fun with. That's important.
True. And I'm so happy that objective of your life has not left you. I feel sometimes people begin with that excitement, and as life happens, they go away from that idea. That has not happened for you, for sure.
Yeah, and of course there have been, times when I've questioned myself, like, I was doing,
of course.
A whole lot of, I was doing very well with television in Bombay, and I decided to move to Delhi where there was no television. And but it was something that I wanted to do because, personal reasons, and I have absolutely no regrets, because what I did from there onwards is again something that, I would have never done if I continued to be in a, channel job in Bombay. So
I'm just connecting this point to the initial conversation where we began, that challenges and adventure for you is the key to make any decision or any choice in life. It's so beautiful to see, how handwriting talks about it, but I feel fascinated by the stories. As you are revealing those parts, I'm just looking at your writing and I'm falling in love with the correlation it is showing.
Yeah, even I'm amazed that, my writing actually told you this about me, which is very true, that, and I know that even it's not like, I outgrow people, but at times, probably say, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, I would be very happy sitting and chatting with some people about, mundane stuff, or going shopping for hours. And today I can't see myself do that. And while I'm not at all judging, I hate judging people, them for doing what they are, but I'm like, please don't expect me to be part of this.
But Shifa, you haven't outgrown them. You have outgrown yourself.
Probably. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
And you keep outgrowing yourself, and that is the beauty of your journey, which to an outsider may look like unplanned, like really reckless journey to look at. But for the commitment to outgrow yourself is the most important thing, and I can't tell you how amusing that is, because
it
that
is.
I know
at times it is. At times, like I said, it makes me think also that, why would I not want to be in a job that gives me a, paycheck every month? But I'm like, I'm done with that. Yeah, now I want to do other things. So I'm, and the thing is that it's very interesting, because, there are on this, as a producer, as a creative producer, there's so much more I get to do and so many new things to learn. So I'm loving it.
So it is in a new thing. So every time you would pick up something, and if it starts making you feel bored, I would request, do not drop the activity. Just look for intensifying it. Now we can have learning curves which are horizontal, which means you pick up one thing and then you drop it, you pick up another thing, which also happens to you in many other cases other than your work. But then there are vertical learning curves, which means I look at something and I say, okay, other people haven't found it, but what can I do to intensify this journey? What can I do to make it even better in the same journey? So if people, if you are getting really bored of the conversation that they're having, now can you observe them closely? Can you look at the motives under their conversation? Why are they making the choices that they're making? I'm not saying you have to be part of that conversation, but I'm just saying how one can intensify the moment instead of trying to switch the channel. It's like literally every moment can become your way to intensify your own learning curve. And I speak about this a lot, and I think I must talk about the idea of having a personal lifetime project. But I'm going to do that on the other side of the break. So stay tuned.
Sounds great.
Beta, did you know 79% of all scientists in NASA are Indian only?
देखो, इंडिया में टैक्स सिर्फ मिडिल क्लास भरती है. Everyone is just enjoying free यार.
आजकल के youngsters are only interested in partying and enjoying. उनको देश की पड़ी ही नहीं है.
बेटा तुम बस शादी कर लो, उसके बाद तो you can enjoy life like anything.
I will tell you what this country needs. This country needs 15 years of dictatorship. That is the only way to become a superpower. See the Chinese, how much they've progressed.
सुनो, तुमने ये WhatsApp forward देखा?
So what's common between all of these statements?
They're all absolutely rubbish.
Fake WhatsApp forwards that spread like wildfire.
And statements that defy any logic.
We are here to debunk them all.
Way of family WhatsApp groups, worst nightmare. Where what happens when you read a book.
Basically, we're just a bunch of guys who want to cut through the bullshit of everyone saying this, how it won't be true.
So that the next time someone confidently squeezes out some WhatsApp or Twitter BS, you can look them dead in the eye and go, Uncle, please sit.
So join me, Joel,
and me, Tushar,
every Mondays for a fresh new episode of Uncle, Please Sit.
So we were speaking about the personal project, lifetime personal learning project that one can pick up.
Yeah,
Now,
please tell me about that. Sounds lovely.
So when we look at learning things and moving forward in life, most of the time we deal with situation depending on the challenge at hand. The problems that we have, the relationships that we go through. But some people are really lucky, and a part of my curiosity and passion, you may say, is to study high performers, to study very deeply what do they do, what is the correct form that they apply, and what can we learn from them. So I saw many of these people, they're so curious about one intense activity or one particular craft that everywhere they go, they keep finding references and learnings and keep putting into this one project. Now, in your case, you have multiple projects like that going on. So if you take a moment and if you understand, all of that would lead to one aspect. If I may see and look at your writing and say, I would say exploring unexplored areas or uncharted territories and doing it creatively could be the area, if I have to look at it as an overall idea. But for you, it could be doing that through writing or doing that through observing acutely. Now, whatever area that you decide or you agree with yourself for a few years, or, it may not be lifetime, you might not be able to commit right away. But if you ask yourself, at least for next few years, what do I want to really put and employ my energies into? Now it becomes a beautiful journey, because no matter where you go, or I would say no matter where you're taken on the journey, you are constantly observing the same area. You're constantly looking at what you require to look at, what you require to add to your personal improvement project.
That's wonderful, yeah. Because now that you say it, it is true that I find myself, probably unconsciously do that. But when somebody is talking about something, like I said, I probably would zone out, but I can see them as a character in a, in a story, in a film. And I'm like, okay, so this is how they talk. And so, do they do this, touch their hair all the time, even when they're angry or when they're happy. And that's kind of, goes into another tangent. But you're right. Yeah. So maybe I need to write those things down, and so that I can look at it and see what comes out of it.
So if you're constantly feeding into that project, then I also feel it becomes a very beautiful journey. And I think you would agree with this, that sometimes totally. I feel I'm taken into a conversation, into a zone, into this very weird situation where I find the clue of that project to look at. I feel for me, as I'm saying, that studying high performer and analyzing their key areas is a thing. So sometimes I'm put into a situation, or suddenly I see a book somewhere, but the communication with your own journey or your own project is on. And I feel that is so beautiful, because then life becomes a game, and then you're constantly playing and looking for clues. Yeah.
So it is, and it's fun. Yeah. This is really, great, Aditi. The kind of things I'm learning from you are based on what you analyzed. Yeah. So it's very fascinating. So Yeah. So tell me something that is there something in my writing which tells you an area that I need to work upon?
Yes. I feel one very, very important area for you to work upon is to allow other people's perspective.
Ouch. Okay.
And I'm saying allow their perspective because being a strong person and also mostly the intelligent one in the room, you tend to have better ideas. But the other part of the story, having a team that feels included, having a team that is also working at their best, or also in personal relationships. You're given an authoritative position naturally. You're like a born leader. So wherever you are, people look at you and they expect you to solve the problems, and you do a good job at it. So when you are good at something, and when you're constantly validated or appreciated for that skill, you tend to believe, and all of us go through that phase where we believe that we are really good at it and we did not listen to people, or we got the game correct. But I feel that can be a way to not grow further. That could be a way to not have the engagement and bonds with people around. And that also leads to a lot of irritation when people do not follow what you think is correct, which might be correct, but it's just that there's a sense of feeling that if it is correct and if it is the best possible option, why won't you do it? And that can become enforcing for people around.
That's wonderful. Yeah. Because I guess everybody needs to find their own answers. So I need to probably give space to,
And when you would listen and when you would allow them to have their opinions in the conversation, you'll be surprised at how much people have waited for you to do that. Because, I feel sometimes when you are a titan in the room, these minute things become like the coffee on the gas. It's not that you don't want to pay attention, but you tend to miss it because the priority and the excitement for the larger idea is much more. So I think it's just that coffee which requires some attention.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I will definitely try, and I will get back to you in a couple of months and tell you. Yeah.
Would love to do that. And I think that breathing exercises that you have started is really crucial. It will help you deal with this area a lot more. So it's beautiful how body and mind have their own mechanism and own connection. So you think you're only doing the breathing and how will it affect my relationship? But it does, because your mind starts learning how to pay attention to things that are otherwise not relevant. And then it starts paying attention to everything. So it's beautiful. I feel mind and body can be trained. And if one can do that, it becomes like a superpower.
Superb. Thank you so much, Aditi.
Thank you so much.
So many things to think about. Yeah.
And also thank you because I know when you are curious. Also, one of the things I want to add here, when you're listening to people and when they're giving you feedback, it's very interesting because if the person can actually hold the space to give you feedback is the only time you listen to the feedback. And I feel that is again connecting to the point that I spoke about. So I'm so happy, like without having much interaction with me, you just jumped in and decided to open up and speak. That's amazing. Thank you for your trust.
It's happened almost instantaneously, because I just felt like again, like you said about me, that I gravitate towards things that excite me, and I just felt like this is a place where I'm going to learn something that's going to help me. And
thank you.
Now I need to stick to that.
Yeah, stick to that and intensify the challenge, because you are a Wonder Woman. So every time you start getting bored, you just say, Wonder Woman, level up. That's what you're required to say.
Will do.
Lovely talking to you, Shifa. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. The author of the book Eat, Pray, Love, Elizabeth Gilbert, says, when I refer to creative living, I'm speaking more broadly. I'm talking about living a life that is driven more strongly by curiosity than by fear. I agree. It takes courage to walk into the unknown and train yourself to figure things out. Many consider creativity as an ability to produce art. No, not true. We all are creative in different ways. Let's talk about how to step into creativity on our Friday episode. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of Absolutely Right. I'm keen to know what were your takeaways from this conversation with Shifa. Do you also suffer the challenges of a creative person or some creativity block? What action will you be taking today to improve something in your life? Do share your experience and send your questions to me on my Instagram handle at Aditi Surana. If you like this podcast, then don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on IVM Network. You can listen to us on IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcast.com. You can also follow us on our social media. We are at IVM Podcast on Twitter and Instagram. Let's connect on Friday. Till then, happy writing!
Do you have a night routine? Well, everyone has one. And the to-do list usually looks like this. Brush your teeth, set that alarm, get into your pajamas, and switch off those screens. But here's one more to add to that list. Tune into the Positively Unlimited podcast for a dose of positive action and tips on how to build powerful mindsets. Episodes out every Monday on the IVM Podcast app, ivmpodcast.com, or wherever you tune into podcasts.
Are you constantly seeking happiness? Wondering how to make the most of every day? How not to let your inhibitions stop you from achieving your goals? It's now time to get your A game on. It's time to unlock your true potential. Tune in to the Empowering series with me, Zarina Poonawalla, to feel empowered in all genres of life. From behavioral skills to management skills. From health to relationships. From mental well-being to emotional well-being. And of course, your finances. I've got you covered. With these tips and tricks from me, Zarina, and true life stories from my amazing guests, you're bound to bring your purest to the table. Tune in to the Empowering series with Zarina Poonawalla every Thursday on the IVM Podcast app, website, or wherever you listen to podcasts.